Welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dhiren Borisa and we are going to talk about resource development and environment cases of pessimism as part of resource geography program. The learning objective for this particular module are going to have an overview of the grim future of human-environment relationship and in context of if the current trends continue. We also aim at understanding the various theoretical contributions of ecologists and scientists and economists suggesting towards a pessimistic relationship between man and environment. And we range our argument from Malthusian population theory to limits to growth by Club of Rome to Global 2000 report by US government. And when we begin by talking about what we aim to do today in this class is in context of what we have already learned. It's what changes has our society seen over its entire history. And the history range from the very fact of how we have shaped our human civilizations, of what kind of resources we have consumed. At different points of time in history, different resources have become the pivotal force behind progress. Human relationship with environment is of a complex nature. Now this complex nature has a history to it, and the history ranges back to the Stone Age, to the hunting-gathering society, to the Bronze Age and the Iron Age, to the Industrial Revolution, where we discovered coal as a resource. And the entire society and the rate of growth drastically changed. And with it change, and what it added was much more complexity to the human-nature relationship. What happened was a drastic and dramatic increase in the population base. Taking into consideration that the resource base that this growing population was dependent on was differentially distributed. There were certain regions which were resource rich and certain regions which were resource deficient. Howsoever, the history also suggests that the regions which are resource rich might not necessarily be the regions which are economically rich now. So therefore, the relationship with man and environment is not just a relationship of how we have accessed, utilized the resources available, but it is also about the political contours of the times, the social relationships that are built over that Earth's surface. That we talk about is the striking level of inequalities that guide the human civilization. The multi-sided poverty and the unequal level of development and industrial capacity that has shaped this complex relationship. From Great Britain to United States of America to most of the developed countries in Western Europe that we know of have a certain relationship with the resources. Similarly, resources are also used in other parts of the world, the developing world, where they might have resource abundance. Howsoever, the resources might not fuel the development paradigm of those particular regions. In this particular module, howsoever, what we intend to argue is that the resources that the Earth is offering us, and that might range from variety of resources from coal, petroleum, natural gas to wood, wind, water resources, to something as common as the air that we use to breathe, are scarce, are finite. There are limitations to what Earth can provide us. However, since the Industrial Revolution, our population has grown dramatically. The issue of resource development and environment, therefore, is the relationship between the growing population size and the limitedness of the environment to support that growing population. And we try to explain it to the concept of carrying capacity, that Earth resources have a carrying capacity, a limit to which they can supplement and satisfy the requirements of the present generation and the future generations to come. Historically, there have been numerous ways through which one has tried to argue this relationship. And most of this argument also flows on the fact that this relationship is the nature of a pessimistic relationship. that the human civilization has extracted more resources than what Earth can supply it, and also ensure the supply in the future. We are not denying the fact that the current regime, the current living that we live, the standard of living that we are habituated with diversified commodities to use, with better standards of living, health facilities, etc., one needs to understand that still this standard of living, better health facilities, or increase in life expectancy, which has a certain relationship with the growing population base and has fueled through the consumption of fossil fuels like coal, petroleum, natural gas since the Industrial Revolution, has also triggered plethora of issues that haunt us today. And these issues range from global warming, through exorbitant rates of carbon emissions to greenhouse gases, the fear of climate change, the melting of glaciers, and how all of these factors have a relationship with Earth's carrying capacity. How do we opine to supplement or support the growing population, which is growing at a faster rate, a rate which is like it doubles itself with less than 30 years, to be supported by Earth's resources which are limited? It was in 1960s when Rachel Carson published her book Silent Spring, and what she was talking about in that book was, she was mentioning the way chemical and fertilizers industry in the United States of America had severely contaminated the environmental conditions. That there was certain panacea that one has to face in response to the growing industrial rage. That this standard of living, this better health facilities had a certain cost to be paid. And what it articulated was that our future is grim in case if we continue to fulfill our needs at the rate that we currently extract Earth's resources. What we are going to talk about in this particular module is we are going to range our argument from dating back to Malthusian theory of 1798, when we wrote an essay on the principle of population. And this particular time point is very important because it was also the time when the Industrial Revolution was just beginning in Great Britain, and it was soon to spread in most part of the world. We are going to base the argument further from Malthus to talk about when Paul Ehrlich talked about the population explosion. And when he talked about population, he talked about population as the bomb. To further talking about Garrett Hardin's concept of tragedy of the commons, and talk about the formation and the treatise of the Club of Rome in the form of limits to growth. And finally, end a lecture with the Global 2000 report, which was published by Barney in response to the call by the President of the United States of America to talk about what is going to happen in the next 20 years since 1980. So when we are going to start the 21st century, what would the new world look like? There are certain questions that we raised in this particular curriculum. And this question are, how long can a finite resource support our living standards? Does Earth have enough to supply the future needs? How does one explain the gross inequalities of resource consumption? And when we talk about these gross inequalities of resource consumption, we understand and we remember the fact there are vast variations in terms of resource availability, and that these variations in resource availability also get represented and reflected in the form of resource consumption. Does Earth have enough to supply the future needs? How does one express the gross inequalities on resource consumption? And when we talk about resource consumption, we are wary of the fact that resources are also unequally distributed. They are available unequally. However, the geographies of its consumption and production also have a certain disparity. What we are also concerned about is what will happen once these resources exhaust. There are two worldviews to suggest this. One worldview is the view of the pessimist. Pessimists are mostly ecologists who suggest that environment has to be put at the forefront, that this relationship between man and environment is of an exploitative nature, that at the rate at which human beings are exploiting the resources for their short-term gains are going to cost them heavily in the future. The pessimists are arguing that the rate at which the population is doubling itself is much faster than the rate at which environment is replenishing its resources. Therefore, the only way possible and forward is that we control our exploitative nature, that we control our excessive extraction of the resources and take into consideration the future needs. And there are various means that they suggest, and one of the various means that they suggest includes controlling the population base. Because if resources are finite and nothing much can be done to the way resources replenish themselves, the only way we can solve this crisis, and they call it crisis, where the capacity of environment has fallen short to fulfill the growing demands of the growing population, is that we cut short of this population, that we decline, either decrease the birth rates or either we increase the death rates. And they share with us a range of possible theoretical formulations. The second opinion is contrary to it, and the second opinion is the opinion of the optimist. Now, most of these optimists are the economists. And what the economists are arguing is that what these environmentalists are saying and suggesting, that one will have to cut short on their demands out of the environment, is falsified, that one should curtail on a standard of living so that our future needs can be sustained, does not take into consideration human capacity and capabilities. Optimists are saying that society always used different kinds of resources in the past. And through history, and history is evidence to this fact, that we have used different kinds of resources. And those resource consumption has been a product of the technological innovations that we have had. Before advent of steam engine, we did not know what to do with coal. And coal suddenly became a resource. And suddenly, the productive capacity of the entire apparatus of economic growth boomed. What optimists argue is that one cannot have a pessimistic view of the future based on what has happened in the past. One should believe in the human capacity and the possibilities that lie in the future. And those possibilities can be of any nature. The possibilities can be that with economic growth, and this we will learn in the next module, is with economic growth, with better standard of living, one also desires to have better air. One desires to have less contaminated water. One desires to have diversity of commodities to consume and fulfill one's desires and needs. And what optimists are saying is that this desire will be an incentive for the people, for human capacities, to either look for substitutes for the exhausting resources or seek for better technologies through which one can increase the efficiency of the consumption of the present resource base. And such does not necessarily require cutting down on the present consumption of the resources that we are having. We will start talking about Malthus, because in the present module we are going to talk about all the pessimists had to say. While Rachel Carson in 1960s, as we mentioned earlier, talked about the silent spring, the kind of contaminated conditions the industrialization, the rapid phase of industrialization has caused, dates back much earlier. And the date goes as back as the Industrial Revolution itself. In Great Britain, at the dawn of the Industrial Revolution, there was a cleric and a scholar called Thomas Robert Malthus. Thomas Robert Malthus used to write a lot and extensively on the issues of population growth. And he wrote numerous pamphlets and distributed those pamphlets. But one of the most important of his contributions is a paper that he wrote in 1798. And this is what was going to turn the very understanding of the man-nature relationship. This was going to usher in an entire era where ecologists will argue that human beings are exploitatively consuming resources, and resources are not going to last forever, and human beings will die or will be reduced to the subsistence level of the carrying capacity once we reach a point of crisis. In 1798, Malthus wrote this beautiful essay called Essay on the Principle of Population. In this essay, he had a very simple argument. And the argument was between the population growth and the food supply. And while we are talking about this particular treatise which Malthus is proposing, one needs to understand the context of the time when Malthus is writing. Industrial revolution is just beginning. Coal as a fossil fuel has just been introduced into fuel the industrial revolution. Also, corn is the major supply of the food resource. And what Malthus is saying is that if one were to look at population as a product of the family trees, and we all have family trees, that which each successive cycle of population, the population geometrically increases. It doesn't get added. So you don't add 1% plus 1% from 1%, but every generation geometrically increases the population. So it increases to the power. So to square, to cube, to the power, to the 2 to the power of 4, 2 to the power of 6, etc. However, compared to the growth of population, which is exponential and geometric, the food supply, which was what he was arguing in terms of the corn production in United Kingdom, was growing only arithmetically. That it was additive and the growth was on a uniform scale. Now, he builds a very simple relationship between these two features, between the growing population, which is growing exponentially, and second, the relationship with the arithmetical progression of the food supply. And what he's arguing is that if the population keeps on growing at the current rate at which it is growing, after a point of time in history or in the future, the food supply, which is growing linearly, will fall short of the growing population base. That is, we will not have enough food to feed in the growing population. And he says this is the point of crisis. And he says this is the point of crisis because he argues that it is at this point that the growth of population will be brought back to balance out the growth in food supply. And this will be done through various kinds of checks. That population will be controlled to match the carrying capacity of the Earth's resources. And he says there are two kinds of checks which happen, and in history, nature has played a pivotal role in this. And how it is done is through famines, through epidemics, through floods. So the moment your population grows more than the resource base, there are famines. There are mass-scale starvation, there is epidemics, there are floods, and population is brought back to the level of the food supply. However, what he is also arguing that there are two ways in which this catastrophe or the point of crisis which Malthus talks about, where the food supply falls short of the growing population, can be avoided is through either positive checks or preventive checks. Now, positive checks, what Malthus argues, are the checks which nature does. However, he suggested the only way we as human intervention can control the population or overcome this crisis situation is through preventive checks. What are these preventive checks? And what he's arguing is to apply moral restraints. Now, while he's talking about moral restraint, and he talked about let's delay the age of marriage. One way to control population would be that people are not marrying at an early age and people are delaying that marriage. Or for instance, people are taking celibate lives. Or for instance, they're opting for abstinence. One needs to also realize that in the initial writings when Malthus was writing, Malthus is also a deeply religious person. And because he's a deeply religious person, in the initial text, he did not suggest artificial birth control measures. However, the later proponents of Malthus, or what we call the neo-Malthusists, the neo-Malthusian thinkers, suggest that birth control measure of contraception can also be used as a preventive check to control the growing population base. Now, when Malthus was arguing this, there was a lot of criticism which Malthus faced. And this criticism came from all over the world, from economists, from environmentalists, from sociologists, from educators, from Marxists. One of the criticism came from Marx himself. And what Karl Marx argued was that this entire theorization which Malthus is giving, that people are reproducing at a much faster rate, and because they are reproducing at a much faster rate, they are doomed to perish in the future, is an anti-poor argument. That what Malthus is saying, poor people tend to reproduce more. And the reason of the poverty is because they reproduce more. Rather than linking this relationship of poverty with the relations of production within the root causes of capitalist thinking. Malthusian theory is a widely accepted theory today. And the kind of pessimistic outbreak that it had continues in the kind of understanding we have between environment and man. One of the criticisms that we talked about came from Marx, where he talked about that Malthus is acting as a lackey of bourgeoisie. He blamed that the theory is accusing poor for being poor. That they are poor because they are reproducing at much faster rate than the carrying capacity of the resources. The second criticism, and the formidable criticism, came from the optimists, who said that Malthus has forgotten about human interventions and technological innovations. He has forgotten that today, due to agricultural productivity and green revolution technology, and especially at the time because of 1798 and 18th century, it was also the colonial period, that lot of crops which had a defined geography were distributed in all parts of the world, thus increasing the production capacity of the soil. One cannot still deny that the theory still applies to a lot of developing countries which struggle with high growth rate of population and limited food supply and resources, and such is replicated also in the family planning measure that most of these countries occupy. Many years, and rather saying centuries, following Malthus, Paul Ehrlich wrote a beautiful book called The Population Bomb in 1968. Now this book, Population Bomb, carried forward what Malthus was arguing. And he started with an example of an overcrowded street in Delhi and said that most of these developing countries are facing a situation of an outbreak of population. And this outburst of population, which is in the form of an explosion, has triggered various kinds of issues which range from poverty to environmental deterioration to clamping the very pace of economic growth that most of these countries have started with. And he said that the reasons of this overcrowdedness or the pressures on the environment does not only lie on the underdeveloped country, but the making is a product of the developmental processes in the developed world. Given the doubling time of population of the Earth's resources, he argued, will exhaust themselves in near future. That after a point, there will be mass starvation. He argued that even science, and that science that was claiming that we are finding places on Mars where we can live, or Jupiter and Pluto and other planets where scientists are trying to figure out through technological innovations life sustenance of resources, will not be able to survive us. That the rate of doubling is much, much faster than the replenishing capacity of the Earth's resources. And in case if they continue, that he argued by 1970s, the world will end. However, we know that we have not ended, we continue to grow, and therefore he had to lament back, and he corrected himself, saying that most of his observations about the grim future were exaggerated. However, one does not deny the fact that one is overexploiting the finite resources of the earth, and thus suggests towards a grim future. Not of the magnitude which probably Malthus or Paul Helrich were suggesting. Following Paul Helrich was Garrett Hardin. In the same year, in 1968, Garrett Hardin talked about tragedy of commons. And what tragedy of commons talked about was what William Forster Lloyd had talked late back in 1833. And this was about common property resources, a paradoxical situation. Assume every village has a common place, a pasture land where all the animals go to feed them. Now, what the paradoxical situation is, that if each and every herder in the farm or in the village thinks of their own selfish needs, they will start increasing the number of animals that they raise. Now, if everybody starts raising the number of animals, while it will benefit the farmer who has increased the number of goats or sheep, overall the resource base will diminish. Garrett Hardin extended this argument in saying that earth resources are also like common property resources, and we all, a growing population with its growing demands, is extracting these resources. That raised that human population is extracting the resources thinking they are common because they are available to everybody, and that human conscience alone will be insufficient to help us resolve this crisis of resource consumption, which is overconsumption of resources. In 1968, another very important thing happened. Club of Rome was formed. Now, Club of Rome was a group of 30 scholars, academicians, educators, industrialists who thought that the world problems are of complex nature, and one or the other, or one theory or another institution that is in practice presently, are insufficient to solve these global issues. And what they were following up was Hugh Thant's lecture in the General Assembly of United Nations, when he said the kind of problems the world is facing today, be it arms race or the malnutrition or global health crisis, etc., has to be resolved in the next 10 years. And as a response, Club of Rome published its first book, and which was extremely popular, called Limits to Growth. And what they are saying, and this book was published in 1972, and what they argued was that the next 100 years, human civilization is going to vanish. And the basis was a computer simulation model that they adopted, taking data on population growth rate, births and death, on resource consumption and resource availability, on food supply, and also about how all of these factors are going to have a certain predicament for human future. That the level of pollution and the food supply and the industrial per capita output is going to fall short of the growing demands of the population base. And one requires to take draconian measures to resolve this population crisis. There were a lot of issues that they raised, and of them, 5 were very important. And the issues ranged from understanding accelerated rate of industrialization. The issues were also around the growing population and issues around malnutrition, depletion of non-renewable resources, and environmental deterioration. What limits of growth suggested that one will have to adopt a global strategy, that the world leaders are every day making global decisions, and these global decisions are affecting the way our future generations are going to survive or not. Or how are we going to consume our resources in order to feed into the growth paradigm which is based on industrialization. What they argued was that we need to be wary about the current global trends in terms of resource consumption and design global equilibrium models in ways that individual satisfaction needs are not compromised across the world, be it developing world or developed world. What they also argued was that the population doubling time is just over 30 years, and this rising population is by far overexploiting available resources, which is likely to bring down further the carrying capacity of the earth. That probably the technological innovation which scientists are banking upon alone will not be able to resolve this crisis. Following Club of Rome and its treatise about in next 100 years the world human civilization is going to perish because there is going to be mass starvation, which did not happen. One said that it was much pessimistic of an approach which they were suggesting. One is still to see what happens. What followed was the Global 2000 report, which was published in the United States of America. The Global 2000 report was the first report which was published by a national government which dealt with global issues that pertained to resource development and consumption. Geraldo Barney compiled at the call of US President Jimmy Carter the first report. Now this report said, and when it was published in 1980, it talked about 2 decades which were coming in future. It was saying what will happen in the year 2000. What it argued, that if the current trend at the rate at which we are consuming the resources continue, the 20 years from now, we are going to end up in an overcrowded world, a world which is full of poor people, which has diminished resources, and the only way one can resolve this crisis is then to limit the way in which we are exploiting these resources. This report had far-reaching consequences. And one of the important consequences came of the fact that this report was published by a national government, United States government, and a lot of environmental agencies, NGOs blossomed saying that we need to do something around this environmental crisis. However, this particular thing was also criticized because we have seen year 2000, and we are still alive. Our standard of living is increasing, population has declined post-1980s, the growth rate has declined post-1980s. And there have been technological innovations and search for better substitutes of resources in order to calm down this claim of pessimistic relationship between human environment and human needs. So what did we do in this present module? What we did was just historically chart out the major contribution by the pessimists in terms of the way they tried to explain man-nature relationship. And we started our understanding from what Malthus talked about in 1798 to what Paul Ehrlich and Garrett Hardin talked about in 1968 in terms of population bomb or the tragedy of the commons, how if our selfish short-term needs continue, the future is grim, to what Club of Rome proposed that in the next 100 years, human civilization is going to collapse. So the history that we are talking about is the history not just of human development, but also the history of human consumption of finite resources, and how that relationship between finite resources and the growing human population has been suggested by certain ecologists as having a very detrimental future. Thank you so much.